Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to export a picture. This lesson is going to cover three things. First of all, we're going to do a basic export. For most cases, a basic export should be more than enough information, but when we're working with pixel art, it's likely to cause a problem. There will be these ugly gray lines appearing between the tiles. So next we're going to figure out why that happens and how we can solve it. And finally, we're going to learn how to export each layer into a different file. So we will have one file for the background, one file for the rock face, and one file for the vines. We go to File, Export PNG Image. When we click on Page, it will automatically fill out all the values down here. So that's the size of the area which you are going to export. And since I'm making pixel art, it's convenient for me to set it to pixels. Looking down here under image size, we see the properties of the expected output. So the file which we're going to create is going to have this width and this height. So make sure that the width and the height of the exported image is also going to be set to 300 and 200 pixels. If not, you can easily change it here. As you can see, when I change the width, then the height and the DPI also change. So you can change any one of these three, and the other two will automatically change too. Here you can set the path and the file name of the output file. You can click on Export As to use an explorer to pick the path and file name. And then click on Export. So let's check the output. And as you can see, there's some ugly gray lines on my picture. Oh well, no need to panic, let's see what's going on. Going back to Inkscape, I first make sure my selection tool is activated and I select one tile. If we look up at these tool options, I can see the precise coordinates of this tile. Right now it's set to millimeters. Let's set it to pixels. As you can see, the x-coordinate is 73.9 pixels and the y-coordinate is 31.4 pixels. That's a bit weird if you think about it. How can you have half pixels? And how can you have like 0.9 pixels and 0.4 pixels? That's because, as I mentioned before, because Inkscape has essentially an infinite resolution. So you can easily talk about half pixels and quarter pixels and whatever. Usually that's pretty great, only now it's causing a bit of a problem when it comes to rendering this image. To fix this, we need to make sure that each tile is perfectly lined up with the pixel grid. I'm going to show you two ways to do it. The first way is to select a bunch of tiles and put in their coordinates manually. So let's select this island and then just go up here and change this value from 41.9 up to 42 exactly. And also in the y-axis, we want to change it from negative 0.4 to 0 exactly. And we do the same with the other island too. Since all these tiles are aligned with one another using the snap to settings corner to corner, they should now all be in an exact location. You can do some spot checks to make sure that they are all exactly aligned up with the pixel grid. So let's export it again and make sure to select Page. And as you can see, when we zoom in, these ugly gray lines have disappeared. So that's one way. The other way is to set up a grid and use grid snapping. Let me show you how to do that. Document Properties, and then go to Grid. We want to create a new rectangular grid. The rectangular grid starts on exactly 0, 0, and there's a spacing of exactly 1 pixel between each grid line. And as we zoom in, we can see each individual grid line. Next, let's change the snap settings. I'm going to activate Snap to Grid. Now, because we have both the corner snap and the snap to grid activated, it's going to snap any corner of bounding box directly to the grid which we set up in document properties. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to select one of these tiles and I can move it to anywhere on the canvas. And as you can see, no matter where I drop it, it's going to be exactly aligned with the pixel grid. In other words, it's not going to be aligned with any half pixels or quarter pixels or whatever. So that can be super useful, of course, but these grid lines are kind of annoying to watch, so we're going to make them invisible. And then we, of course, have to make sure that it can also snap to invisible grid lines, so we uncheck snap to visible grid lines only. And then any tile which you add to the scene will be automatically perfectly aligned with the pixel grid. That way there will be no half overlapping pixels. So now I'm going to enlarge the world and I'm going to make sure that my grid snapping is activated, and then I can easily add another island, and each tile that I add from now on will automatically be aligned precisely. Ta-da! That was super quick. My mouse hand was just a blur. No, I'm just kidding. I sped up the video, obviously. Anyway, moving on. Next, I'm going to show you how to export this picture into 3 separate files. One for the background layer, one for the rock face, and one for the vines. Now the area we want to export is much larger than the document we set up in document properties. So we don't want to click on page, but we want to click on selection. When you click on selection, it will automatically fill out these numbers so that the to be exported area corresponds with the current selection. Since we currently have the sky background selected, that's the area that it's going to export. Don't forget that here too we don't want to be dealing with part pixels. We don't want to be dealing with half and quarter and whatever pixels. We have to make sure that the width and the height of the sky background are specified to the whole pixel and not to the half pixel. Now we're ready to export. So remember, I wanted to export it in 3 layers. So first I'm going to export the background layer. And for that I'm going to first hide the other layers. Select it to make sure that this export area is okay. Quickly double check the numbers here. And then I'm going to export as, and I'm going to specify the file name. In this case, I want to export it as background.png. And don't forget to click on the export button. I'm going to do the same for the rock face. Let's hide this background layer first. Make sure though that you don't change the selection because we want to keep these export area numbers. Pick a file path and name and then click on export. And we will finally do exactly the same with the vines layer. Exporting into different layers is helpful for us now because we will re-import the layers back into Krita and do some final touch-ups. It's also handy if you are trying to create some kind of parallax scrolling, where the background will scroll at a different speed than the foreground. But that's another story. So thanks for watching. No homework today. We are basically done. In the next video, we are just gonna do some final touch-ups back in Krita again. So see you soon. Bye bye.